Okay, talking about problems that are connected to systems that we could change to make them more equitable. We've been talking a lot about school and how there are different ways that people are doing school. So I want you right now to think about a problem in our school culture. You've got the worksheet, and there's a spot on there where you're going to write, here's a problem I think we have in our school culture. Think about something that either affects the way you feel about coming to school, maybe just on B days, maybe just one of your classes. Maybe it's just something that bugs you that you think about when you're not at school. So take a moment, pause the video if you need to, come up with a statement that you think is a problem in here at North Junior High. All right. Now, what we're going to start to think about is the thing that you're thinking of actually the problem, or is it a symptom of the problem? So, as we think about changing systems, there are a couple of different ways we can look at problems. One is problem solution, simple. We look at a problem, we come up with a solution for it. Maybe it's not simple, maybe it's really complicated, but we think if we can see a problem, we need to solve it. So we go from A to B to C to D in a nice, clean, straight line. So if I am a linear thinker and I go to the doctor, and I say, I have a headache, I have a fever, and my vision is blurry. If I'm unlucky enough to have a doctor who is also a linear thinker, my doctor might say, you have a headache, here's some aspirin. You have a fever? Well, let's put a cool compress on your head. Your vision's blurry? Maybe you should make sure you're wearing your glasses. Now, that is problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution. I'm looking at each problem completely independent from each other and trying to come up with a solution. Now, if I'm actually sick with something that's causing me to have a headache, a fever, and my vision to be blurry, these three things might help a little bit. They might make my symptoms feel better, but they're not going to solve my problem. So I hope that my doctor is going to do more than just treat my symptoms. He's going to think about, or she is going to think about, how the symptoms are connected in a system. In this case, the system of my body, right? So if I'm a good doctor who's a systems thinker, I'm thinking about your whole body and how these symptoms are connected. I might test your blood. I might take your blood pressure to see if that's what's causing your vision to be blurry. And then I may be able to diagnose you with a virus and give you some antiviral medication that's actually going to solve the problem of why you're feeling sick, not just make the symptoms feel a little bit better. We want to do the same thing with all of the problems we're looking at in a system. We want to dig a little bit deeper and make sure, are we really seeing the problem, or are we seeing a symptom of the problem? So let's talk through, and again, follow along with your worksheet, and you're taking some notes as you go. So the first way that we might be able to tell that we're looking at a symptom instead of the problem is that we're looking at small things and ignoring the big looming thing that's standing behind us. So if we spend a lot of time talking about really small, sort of insignificant things, but we're really spending a lot of our time and energy on that, we may be looking at the symptoms of a much bigger problem. The second one is, are we showing any kind of imagination and looking outside of the box? Or is everybody staring at the problem in the exact same, very limited way? Are we spending any time thinking beyond the only way we look at it and try to imagine different things that might be happening? So, do we have imagination in our system? The third one is this problem a pattern? Does it come up predictably over and over again? Even if you try to take care of it, does it just keep happening in slightly different ways? So, is there a predictable pattern to the problem? The next one is, are we keeping the problem around talking about it a lot, admiring the problem, even though it makes us mad, and almost resisting working on it because there's something almost perversely enjoyable about how much time and energy we spend bonding over how much we hate it. So we spend lots and lots of time admiring the problem and not a lot of time trying to find solutions. If we're keeping the problem around as a pet, we might be looking at a symptom. We also need to consider what are all of the other stresses in our system. So if we're looking at a problem but ignoring that there's a whole bunch of other things that are really challenging that are happening in our system and not acknowledging this one little thing we don't like might be connected to some of those other really hard things, then we're also missing an important part of the problem. And finally, if we have a problem that we think we've taken care of, we think we got rid of it, and then it just pops right back up, or two more pop up right next to it that are kind of like the problem we thought we got rid of. The idea is that, of course, mushrooms are building these underground networks all the time. And then when the soil gets wet enough, all of these mushrooms pop up through, and it seems like they just grew overnight, but they've been down underneath doing their work for a long time. And you can pull up a mushroom, but of course, another one's going to pop up because you can see how deep and rich their network system is underneath the soil. So if we have a problem that pops up even when we think we've taken care of it, we may be looking at a symptom of the problem and not the problem is all of that's underneath the soil. So focusing on small things when we're ignoring the big ones that are looming, limited imagination, we're only willing to talk about it in one or two very specific ways. The problem has a pattern. We can kind of predict when it's going to happen again. We spend more time talking about the problem than working to solve it. We have to think about how we're not thinking about how much other stress there is in the system and how our problem might be related to that. And finally, we pull up one problem and another pops up in its place. If any of these things are true about the problem you're thinking about or that you named that bothers you about North Junior High, you might be looking at a symptom. And then we want to ask, what do we think that is a symptom of? What's the bigger thing that it might be connected to? So can you see that it's not just a headache, not just a fever, not just blurry vision, but that maybe if we can connect those three things together, we can start to see that maybe it's a virus. So on your worksheet, you're going to look at each of these 6 ideas, focusing on small things, limited imagination, etc. You're going to think, is there any way that this is true about the problem I'm thinking about? And then you're just going to spend a little bit of time trying to imagine or wonder, what else would I need to learn? Who else would I need to talk to? What else might I need to think about that I might be able to connect my problem or my symptom to that would help me understand more about the real problem I'm thinking about?